where we talk about becoming your own therapist. I appreciate you all being here. Maybe some of you are new, but I'm also sure that some of you have been following and are here for the below the live stream on Facebook, and I can come back to them. Sometimes I answer your question right there. Sometimes I might come back to the questions in the teachings. Yes, and the ones who are in Zoom, they can keep putting the questions in the chat box. I had a look through them, the questions from yesterday. There were some very interesting questions, and I will answer at least a couple of them today. And some of them, they will come tomorrow or day after tomorrow. And I'll try to answer to the best of my ability, but I know that some of you are in very specific situations. And then it is difficult for me to answer, you know, exactly what is good for you in that situation. So what I trust and what I hope is that you listen very deeply to the teachings, and then somehow from that come to an understanding that is applicable to your unique situation. Okay. So when you are on Facebook, if you feel that this is beneficial for your friends, you can make a watch party of your live stream. And then we will start with a small meditation to settle the mind. And then we set up a good motivation for listening and reflecting and meditating today. So for that, make sure that you are sitting in a comfortable position, whether that is a formal meditation posture or you're sitting on a chair or a couch. Make sure that the body is comfortable and that your awareness is with the body. You can observe how tense or relaxed you are. You can observe your feelings. You can observe your breath. Whatever is most comfortable for you. And when we are focused on the body, the feelings, or the breath, the mind automatically comes to the present moment, because the body is always in the present moment. And when the mind is in the present moment, the delusions, the disturbances naturally come to rest. And then we can set up a positive motivation. We are listening to these teachings because we know that we are suffering, or because we know that we are having problems, and we wish to be free of that. And so just as we experience problems and suffering, so do all sentient beings. And if we think deeply, then we can see that we have a connection with all sentient beings. We are all part of that collection of sentient beings. And so parts influence each other. They are related to each other. And even if we don't know all sentient beings, we know that they exist, and we know that there is an influence. So we have the good fortune that we have met with teachings that show a way out of suffering, beyond suffering. And so we are very fortunate. And whatever we learn that is going to be beneficial, that is going to help us to develop our wisdom mind and our compassion, knowing that so many sentient beings do not have such precious opportunity as we have, we can make a determination that whatever benefit comes from listening to these teachings, that we going to use that somehow for the benefit of all sentient beings. Start the teaching. And teaching, I mean, I'm sharing to the best of my ability, my understanding of the Dharma, of what I have learned over the past 20 years. I'm not a realized teacher, you know, I'm just a fellow student sharing some of the knowledge in the way that I've understood it, right? I just want to, so whatever I tell, whatever I talk about, you check it up. You check other sources, right? Don't just believe me. I'm very limited. So what have we been talking about so far? You know, so we are all sentient beings, and what we share with each other is that we all have a mind that is by nature pure, like the blue sky, unobstructed by clouds. What we also have in common, not with all sentient beings, but with all ordinary sentient beings, is that we have disturbing emotions arising in the mind. Especially when problems arise, they become very clear. And these disturbing emotions, they cloud the mind. They make the mind unpeaceful and busy. So yesterday we spoke about the root cause of these disturbing emotions, which is the self-grasping mind. The mind that holds the self to exist as an objective entity. More solid, more concrete, more permanent and independent than it exists in actuality. So that self-grasping mind is an ignorance. It is not only a not knowing, but it is a distorted knowing that has been with us, in Buddhism we say, since beginningless time. And I think in the first day I mentioned something about that the mind, the continuity of mind is beginningless and doesn't have an end, because it is produced from this moment of mind is produced from the previous moment of mind. So in that way, we posit a continuity without beginning and without end. So if we have a mind that has no beginning and no end, that means that we have been taking rebirth since beginningless time. And we will take, no, I shouldn't say that we will take rebirth till the end of time, but there is this possibility, right, that we keep taking rebirth, at least as long as we are under the influence of the disturbing emotions. Beginningless time means that we cannot posit a beginning. When we think about it, and they say when the Buddha looked with his, the Buddha's mind is developed in the sense that there is no ignorance anymore. He can see directly past and future lives. If the Buddha looks into where is the beginning of the mind, the Buddha cannot see a beginning. So this is why we say the mind exists since beginningless time. And the mind has been ignorant since beginningless time. Why is that? If we would realize the nature of reality, if we would be able to remove our ignorance, we see how things exist, and that realization has a quality that makes that we can never unsee what we have seen. So once we have removed ignorance, that can never come back. So because we are ignorant, that means we have never removed that in the past. We have maybe developed many realizations in the past, but not that realization that is needed in order to really eliminate the ignorance from the root, from our mind stream. So we are very used to the self-grasping mind. We are very habituated with it. That is what we are, right? We do not know ourselves in a different way. We think the way we function is normal. We totally identify with it. But in actuality, that ignorance, that self-grasping, and all the delusions that arise in dependence on the self-grasping, they are not part of the nature of the mind. And actually, these are just like clouds in the mind. And due to that ignorance, we cannot see reality as it is. We cannot see our reality, which to us is the only reality that we have, right? But in Buddhism, we call that reality that we have, we call that conventional reality. We cannot see conventional reality as it is. And we can also not see how things exist ultimately. Many of us haven't even thought about that there is a different quality of being that we have not seen yet. So that's the ultimate nature of reality. And because our mind is obscured with this ignorance, we can also not see the potential of our own mind. We have a very limited view of our mind. But in actuality, we can develop our mind. We can go very deep. We can realize the profundity of the nature of reality. And we can make the mind very vast, with our developing a heart that is embracing all sentient beings, that holds all sentient beings. That capacity is a capacity that is there. We can develop that. And Buddhism is a method that helps us, or that shows how we can develop the mind in such a way. And the more we develop the mind in such a way, the more the mind becomes free from the disturbing emotions. And with that freedom arises joy in the mind, arises happiness in the mind. Joy and happiness are qualities that are natural for us when we connect more with our natural state of mind. Joy and happiness are naturally there. We don't have to create them. We don't have to fabricate them. These are innate qualities waiting for us. So at the moment, we do not experience such kind of happiness that arises spontaneously. At the moment, we find happiness by following our feelings. And we have seen that when pleasant automatically aversion follows, trying to be separated from it. And so this mechanism, finding happiness and freedom from suffering, all beings that are in the desire realm, that have a desire realm mind, use this method, use this tool. It arises due to ignorance, but it has been serving us. It is the best that we have. It is an emotional response. It is actually not even a response, it is a reaction. There is no rational thinking between the feeling and how we react to it. It comes automatically. And we can see that with animals, right? They have the same reaction when they like something or when they don't like something. They move to what they like, they move away from what they do not like. So although we might experience some pleasure by following our feelings, that pleasure does not have the capacity to provide us peace of mind, that provide us stable happiness. It cannot do that. And so yesterday somebody asked, but what is the problem? I have quite a good life, and I experience many good things, and maybe not everything is perfect, but I'm quite happy. What is the problem? Why would I look deeper into it? If you, and I can give you many different answers, but the motivation to look deeper into the nature of reality, into how the mind functions, needs to come from you. Right? I do not have to convince you that that might be useful. You need to see from your side that that is useful for you. So if you feel like, for me, it's not useful, there's no need to watch. Right? But if you're curious and think, well, maybe there's more to it, then you listen and you see what you can apply to your life. One of the reasons why you could listen is, if you have some kind of idea, some people, especially Indian people, they have a conviction that this life is not the only life. We also have future lives. You can think about that. If I live my life like this, the way I'm living it right now, what does that mean for my future? If I live my life like this, and if you are, I'm not sure if you are from India or not, but if you believe in past and future lives, you also know about karma. So when you engage in these actions the way you're doing right now, what kind of karma are you creating? And what does that mean for future lives? Right? So you can think about that. But That motivation needs to come from you. That insight needs to come from you. So the origin of our attachment and aversion, this automatic reaction, this emotional reaction that comes so naturally, the cause for both of them is our self-grasping mind, holding the self to exist in the way that it appears to us, as an objective, autonomous, or independent entity. While in actuality, there is not such a self. Such a self does not exist. So yesterday we also talked about how we project such objective entity not only on ourselves, but also onto all things, all people. And then we believe that objects and persons exist like that, how they appear to us. So what we are doing, we're adding a quality to everything that appears to us, a quality of what we call inherent existence. You know, and yesterday I talked about how we create this generic image in our mind. This, we call it meaning generality. We can call it a conception. We can call it a generic image. How we project that onto things. And then in the next moment, it appears, that generic image appears back to us as if it is coming from the side of the object. That generic image is something different than what is existing over there. We mix them up. So that generic image adds a quality to the objects or to the persons or to the self, which does not exist here, which does not exist in the objects. And that quality that we add is that we make it more permanent, more concrete, more solid, more independent than it exists in actuality. For instance, a car, you know, I have a car, I don't have a car, but I had a car, I have a car. Imagine I have a car. And it's my car, and I'm very attached to my car. And my car gives me certain feelings, and I have an image of my car in my mind. I can change the wheels of the car, but it is still my car, and it is still the same car. I just changed the wheels. I can also change the screen and the motor and the brakes and you know, all parts, but it is still my car and it is still the same car. So we change all the parts of the car, but in our mind, we still see the same car. Right? So there is an ever-changing object right in front of us. And somehow the mind projects an image onto that, which keeps that impermanent changing objects as the same thing. So that makes the object more permanent than it is in actuality. True? And it looks like this car doesn't depend upon anything, right? Because it can change everything. You know, the causes and conditions are all the time changing, but the car is still the same. So it looks like the car functions independent of causes and conditions. So we add that independent entity to each and everything that appears to us. And that is something that we also have been doing since beginningless time. To habituation, it will still appear to us until we become a Buddha, until we have developed our mind fully. So that means that it is deeply ingrained in the way we perceive things, in the way we hold things to exist. And so in order to realize that things do not exist like that, you can imagine that we cannot do that with our normal, ordinary, day-to-day mind. We need to train our mind. We need to make the mind more subtle so that we can understand what we are actually talking about, and we can learn to see what we are talking about. So when we train our mind in that way, and we have the capacity that things do not exist the way they appear to us, that quality that we add in actuality is not there, that in actuality the object is empty of that quality of inherent existence that we add, then we say you realize emptiness. So nothing, no object in the universe, and objects includes persons in Buddhism, has this quality of inherent existence. Nothing exists inherently, not even emptiness itself. Also, emptiness depends upon the mind realizing it. Right? Nothing in this universe exists independently of causes and conditions, of its parts, and of the mind realizing it. So this is what we do. And the main object to which we add that quality of inherent existence is the self. And so that is the self-grasping mind, grasping the self to exist inherently. And due to that grasping, we react with attachment and aversion. And then from that, all the other disturbing emotions arise. The stronger we believe that the objects that we grasp at exist inherently, means exist really, truly like that, like the way we perceive it. The stronger we believe that something is really good from its own side, in and of itself, the stronger our attachment for that. Right? The stronger we hold on to true existence, the stronger our reactions to what we like and what we don't like. And so in general, we can say, you know, we all have different minds. We all have a different history. We have done a different journey coming to where we are now. So we all have a different mind, and some people have stronger attachment to visual forms, while others have more stronger attachment to, for instance, food or to sounds. Some people, their mind is dominated by attachment, you know, always looking for something, always grasping, always looking for the fun, always looking for the good experience. While other people, they're more habituated with the aversion. They're struggling to become free of suffering. Oh, there is the depression again. Oh, there is again a person that I don't like. How do I deal with all this? Right? So we all have our own unique journey in that. So there was a question that said, are feelings feelings are neutral. That was a statement. So feelings, we don't really say they're neutral. We say there are pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, and neutral feelings. And then emotions are the reactions to these feelings. And so the question was, are emotions negative because they are disturbing? So we have negative emotions and we have positive emotions. And the negative emotions refers to our reactions to the feelings. And they disturb the mind. So they refer to attachment, aversion, and everything that comes from that. Our jealousy, our pride, our anger, our resentment, that all disturbs the mind. Positive emotions are emotions that are based on reasoning. And so in the last day, or maybe the last 2 days, we will talk about how we can develop positive emotions. They do not disturb the mind. They make the mind very happy. They nourish the mind. They make the mind full. They make life meaningful when they arise in the mind. So we'll talk about that. But they are always based on reason. We cannot spontaneously have these arising in the mind. Maybe if you have done a lot of work in your past life, you might have these qualities already in your mind, but we need to keep training to sustain them and to let them increase. Because as long as our self-grasping mind is there, that one we are most familiar with, that one comes in every unattended moment. That one is the one who is directing the mind when we are not fully present. Right? And if we check our mind, most of the day we are not fully present. Right? The mind is somewhere else. So we have these habits of reacting in certain ways. And yesterday I mentioned that the mind doesn't have any characteristics of its own, which means that we can train the mind in anything. For instance, at the moment, our mind is used to being distracted, right? And I think, especially when you're a lot on social media, you train your mind in being distracted, which means that the attention span becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. More distraction, more distraction, more distraction, right? You can watch a video maybe 1 minute and then you already want to see the next one. It's very difficult to watch, a whole teaching. I'm very aware of that. And I can see myself doing the same thing. You flick through Facebook, less than 1 minute, you want to see the next one. I do not have the patience to see the whole movie or the whole little movie. So we are trained in distraction. But when we start doing mindfulness training, and we can do, when we meditate, we can also do that when we engage in activities. We stay mindful and we train our mind, bring the mind back to the present moment, bring the mind back to the present moment again and again and again. Then at a certain point, your mindfulness becomes so strong, you do not know anymore how to distract your mind. Somebody says, oh, let's go and distract the mind. And you think, I don't know how to do that. Because the mind has become mindful all the time. So because the mind doesn't have any characteristics of its own, we can train the mind in any quality to a limitless capacity. It's fantastic, isn't it? And so the more qualities we realize in the mind, the happier we're going to feel. The more we feel connected with, some people call it their true self, but true is a difficult word in Tibetan Buddhism because we say things do not exist truly. But we could call it authentic self. We could call it the authentic self at its best. It's like the qualities of understanding, of patience, of loving kindness, they naturally arise in the mind at a certain point. And we can all become like that, no matter how much anger you have in your mind, no matter how impatient you are, how agitated you are, how much attachment you have. It doesn't matter. You start where you are. And because your mind doesn't exist inherently, you start where you are, you start to lessen the disturbances, and with that you start to develop the good qualities. Okay, I'm going to look at a few questions. So when we develop qualities in the mind, we can lose these qualities when we do not engage in sustaining the qualities or training the qualities even to even further. And that refers to the qualities related to compassion and loving kindness, the qualities of the heart. They are most vulnerable for moments of anger that arise in the mind. You know, when we have developed compassion and then we get angry at someone because somebody hurts us deeply, we can destroy or maybe destroy part of that capacity of compassion, right? But then we can start again, right? It is not that it is forever lost. We just, with the anger, we can destroy that quality, so then we have to build it up again. Qualities related to wisdom, they are more difficult to destroy, you know, because once you have seen something, once you know something, it is very difficult to unknow that. And so what we say in Buddhism is that the qualities that arise in dependence upon your developing your wisdom, these qualities you take with you. And so then in the next life, when you can, these qualities either, you know, now I would say due to causes and conditions, these qualities, they open up, they manifest again. So there is a question which is say that it is healthier to have an image or idea about who or what I am or might be. I think we start where we are, you know, so I have an image of myself, and in itself, it is not that the self does not exist. You know, we have a self. I can say I'm talking, that means there is an I. But the way I believe that I exist, it doesn't exist the way it appears to me. That appearance is very, very deep in the psychic. And I think it is better to look at that than to pretend, oh, I'm just not going to follow that anymore. I'm just going to think that I'm not that. You know, you need to look how you believe in the I, and then investigate if such an I can really exist like that. You need to develop a mind, a wisdom mind that directly opposes that idea of our self exists like this. Once you develop a wisdom mind, that conception cannot hold, that conception disappears. And that is the way that we free ourselves from that conception. So developing the mind that is totally opposite as what we believe in. I hope that answers your question. So when we speak about a self-grasping mind, somebody says, are we referring to the mind which is clear and knowing? Yes, every moment of mind is clear and knowing. Every moment of mind is like space. When the self-grasping mind is strongly present in the mind, for instance, when there is a lot of fear in the mind, you know, it almost feels like something is contracting inside, as if the mind is not at all spacious, right? It feels like this cramp. So then remembering that although there is fear in the mind, even the mind of fear is clear and knowing, even the mind of fear is space, and trying to see the spacious aspect can mean that you let go, you know, that there is more, that you let go and that you create the conditions for the fear to dissolve back into the mind. Okay, I'm going to talk today about our attachment and aversion. And what I've said is that reacting with attachment and aversion is our tool to find happiness and freedom from suffering. And I'm going to explain you why it never can bring you what you really want, and why believing in that system, that is the way, is creating a huge problem for yourself. So we have a self-grasping mind, and that reacts with attachment and aversion. And I'm going to share a screen with you just to make it easier to see what I'm talking about. So you see here what we call the 8 worldly concerns. The 8 worldly concerns are what motivates us, you know. And you see there is a column at the left side, which is kind of orange. And these are the things that we feel make us happy. So when we have contact with, for instance, material things, with comfort, pleasant feelings arise in the mind, and then we crave for more. When we taste something nice, when we see something that we like, when we hear beautiful sounds, you know, then due to contact with the sense objects, pleasure arises in the mind, then we crave for more. Yeah. So if we go down to the, to the left column, there is also the craving for hearing sweet, ego-pleasing words or sounds. So somebody says to you, oh, you're such a lovely person. That is so wonderful that you did that for me. I appreciate you so much. You know, when we hear that, we feel happy, right? And then we want to hear more. So if they say tomorrow, they don't say that to us, we try to do something so that they repeat these pleasing words to us. And so the last one is craving for personal praise and admiration. And that has to do with how people talk about us. It has to do with our reputation. We want people to talk about us, that we are very good people and that we are working so hard and we're trying so good and we're having such a beautiful heart, and you name it. We like people to talk about us like that. And so these things, when we have contact with them, they are a condition for pleasant feelings to arise in the mind. And then we react with craving for more. True? That is what keeps us busy most of the day. I don't want to say the whole day, but it is almost the whole day. Most people, this is what is in the mind the whole day. And so what we then do is also we try to be free of the opposite of that. So we crave to be free from not acquiring things. You know, when we are experiencing discomfort, when we do not have the material things that we would like to have and it's causing us discomfort, we have aversion, we don't like it. And so we crave to be free from that experience. In order to be free from that experience, we crave for the opposite. We crave for having the material thing. We also want to be free from the displeasures of the 6 senses, right? If our neighbor turns on the radio very loud and we can't stand the music that he is playing, you know, we want to be free of that. There's so much aversion in the mind. We want to be free of that. If we have food that has been burned, you know, and we taste it, even if it is made with a lot of love, we don't like it. We want to be free of the displeasure that we experience from tasting unpleasant food or untasty food. So we want to be free of that. We work for that. We try to avoid these kind of experiences. We also do not want to hear uninteresting sounds or ugly sounds or displeasing sounds. Right? If somebody I don't want to say these words, but if somebody calls you a bitch or, you know, any other ugly word, it's very unpleasant. We are shocked. Like, how can they say that? You know, it's not pleasing our ego. It is hurting our ego. So we want to be free from that. And then we want to be free from personal slander, criticism, blame, you know, even whether we have done something or not. You know, sometimes we are blamed and we didn't really do anything. And sometimes we are blamed and yeah, we were to blame, but we don't like both of them. Right? So we try to avoid that. We do not want people to talk badly about us. We do not like our reputation to be challenged. So what we are you recognize all these? There is no one who says, oh, I love to hear displeasing sounds. You know, I love to be scolded. I love it when people talk bad about me. There's nobody who says that. Right? So what we are doing is we are constantly striving for the things in the left column, in the orange column. And we are constantly striving to avoid the things in the right column. We are constantly striving for the things that give us pleasure. And we are striving to be separated from the things that cause us displeasure. And we think, if I manage that really well, I'm very successful. True? That's success in our life. When we manage getting the left ones and being free from the right ones. And Buddhism says behavior is exactly what is causing all our problems. So let's look into that. If we have this behavior, you know, and we have strong craving for the left column, then we also have strong craving to be free from the right column. Right? And so the stronger that craving is, the more duality there is in life. The more we say, oh, that is really good and that is really bad, and we have to work really hard to get only the really good things, and we have to work really hard to avoid all the really bad stuff. Right? We split the world into two. This is what I want, that is what I do not want. As if we have that control. Right? If you look really deep into that, it's almost insane, you know, that we believe that we can make that decision and that is what life is, and that this column is the real life and that column is, you know, you're a loser when you have a lot of that. You're not really living your life. But if we have strong craving for one side, then when we get the opposite, we suffer much more. Or if we have strong craving for material things, you know, we might be very anxious or worried that one day we're going to get the other side. So that causes disturbances in the mind. Or if you have strong aversion for one of these things on the right side, that means that there is an underlying craving for the thing at the left side in the orange column. Craving, aversion, it disturbs the mind. And so what we say in Buddhism, having or not having what we like is not the problem, but our attachment to having it or our aversion to not having it is the problem. So when we have strong aversion and strong attachment, then the mental engagement after the experience is the main cause of our suffering. So when we get something that we don't like, when we cannot get something that we like, and we start thinking about that, the thinking, the clinging to the things, that is what is causing the most problems. That causes at least, I think, 90% of our suffering. And so sometimes things happen, and then the mind keeps clinging, but I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen. And you keep repeating that, sometimes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I didn't want that to happen. Right? That is, it happened already. Everything, you know, the experience has gone, but what has not gone is your clinging to the experience that you didn't want to have it. That can cause you suffering for 30 years, while the experience has gone for 30 years. The more attachment, the more anxiety, the more craving. And also the more aversion, the more short-tempered we are, the easier we get angry when we can't get what we want. Right? Can you see that? So both having things and not having things is part of life. Both things, pleasant experiences, unpleasant experiences, are part of life. I'm going to come back to you. They're all part of life, right? And so if how we react to these experiences is what is determining most of our suffering, then we can maybe change our focus from having things or not having things to how do I react to having things and not having things. And if I work with my reaction, then whether I have things or not doesn't matter. I can eliminate 90% of the suffering that arises in dependence on having or not having things. And that is what we try to do in Buddhism. And so these 8 worldly concerns that I just showed you, they are concerned with the happiness of this life. They do not go further than that. So when we are following that mechanism of attachment and aversion, there is nothing coming after this life. And one time a student asked the question in class, but how do you know that there are past and future lives? Maybe there are, or maybe there are no future lives. So why would I be concerned with that? And then I said, so do you take care of your pension? I said, yes, of course. And I said, but do you know for sure you're going to be old enough to enjoy that pension? No, I'm not. But you still take care of that, although you're not sure whether you're ever going to get that. Right? So in the same way, if we see that just being focused on this life, on the happiness of this life, is actually setting in motion a way of reacting in the mind that is causing a lot of disturbances in the mind, maybe we can change that focus a little bit, right? And they say that even just thinking about the fact that this life is not going to last forever, right? You don't even have to think about what is coming after this life. Just, this is not going to last. My life is going to end one day. Just realizing that, just thinking about that, is very helpful in reducing the craving for the 8 worldly concerns. Right? So meditation on impermanence is extremely important. in managing our attachment and aversion. Let me have a look. I want to say a little bit more. I want to say a little bit more about conditioned existence and about what we are trying to do with that attachment and aversion, right? So we have this self-grasping mind, the mind that is grasping in itself to exist in a way that it doesn't exist in actuality. So that self appears to be quite concrete, like a separate entity, almost an independent entity. And so that self has needs. And that self, we take care of that self. So what kind of needs does the self have? What are we looking for? Because we're not going to say, oh, we're not going to take care of the needs, right? I'm not going to say that, but I want you to show you where attachment is going. We have the self, and somehow the self has the feeling of a lack. I need something in order to feel whole. I need something in order to feel worthwhile. I need something in order to feel good enough. I need something. We have this lack, right? Because we cannot see the potential of our mind. We cannot see who we really are. So we need something. No answers coming. We need something. We need, for instance, love. We need that all human beings, all living beings, I would say. We all need love, unconditional love. We all need the feeling of being accepted the way we are. We all need connection. We need nourishment. We need food, drink, shelter. We need approval. And sometimes our needs go to, I need to be the best. Maybe deep inside we feel not good enough, so we want to show that we are the best. We also have connection, we also have a need for protection. And so in order to find connection, love, nourishment, we use our attachment. And in order to find protection, we use our aversion, our anger. So attachment appears to us as that which is going to give us what we need. And anger and aversion appears to, I'm going to help you, I'm going to protect you. So attachment and anger, they appear as our friends. They appear as if they're going to serve us so that we are safe and so that we have everything that we need. And so in order to see that attachment is not and find the tools that are giving real protection and the tool that is giving really what we need. Right? So I will talk about that tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So we reacting, coming from that self-grasping mind, that belief that the mind exists in a way that it doesn't exist in actuality, and then engaging in reacting to our feelings. And then in dependence on these feelings, we react, and then in dependence on these reactions, we engage in actions such as physical actions, verbal actions, mental actions. All these actions, they leave imprints in our mind. And in the future, they ripen as a similar experience as what we were reacting to. And so in the future, we will have a similar experience. And then the chance is big that we're going to react in a similar way. And so then we become like little rats going around in a wheel, you know, repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And that repetition which has as the root cause the self-grasping mind, that is called conditioned existence, going over and over and over again. Conditioned existence is the third type of suffering where I was talking about that yesterday at the end of class. That conditioned existence is the real cause of all our suffering. And if we do not remove the root, which is the self-grasping mind, then the root cause of conditioned existence is still in our mind. And when causes and conditions arise, disturbing emotions are triggered again. And we engage in similar actions under the influence of these disturbing emotions, creating imprints in our mind for experiencing a similar thing in the future. So there was a question about how do we find liberation? How do we find the state of what is called Nirvana? And somebody quoted something from a book. And I will rephrase it for you because I think it is very far away. So that phrase said that we can, by single-pointed concentration, we can subdue the disturbing emotions so far that we achieve a state of liberation. And this is taught within the non-Buddhist schools, that is the way of finding liberation. You meditate single-pointedly, you develop all kinds of different mental states within that single-pointed concentration until the delusions become so balanced, not balanced, they become, we say they become suppressed, they are not manifest. And so then it appears like they are gone. And then in non-Buddhist traditions, that is called liberation or nirvana. But in Buddhism, we say the real cause of suffering is that conditioned existence. And by merely reducing the disturbing emotions with single-pointed concentration, you do not realize the lack of that self that we are grasping at. You do not realize the emptiness of that inherently existent self. And if you do not realize that lack, then you still have self-grasping somewhere deep in your mind. Which means that if conditions arise that your disturbing emotions start to arise again, you're not in single-pointed concentration anymore. Your whole cyclic existence, your whole conditioned existence is still there, is reactivated. So if we want to really take the root out of all our suffering, we have to remove conditioned existence. And that is something very unique to Buddhism. Other traditions do not have that, do not talk about that. It took me a long time to really understand that, because Buddhism says we are not the same as the non-Buddhists, and the non-Buddhists say, well, it is all the same, and we use the same words, nirvana, enlightenment, but we use the same words to describe something different. So to really understand that, you have to study both non-Buddhist schools, Buddhist schools, and see what is the difference. So there is a question, how do I let go? I will talk about that. Tomorrow we start talking about what we can do, you know, how we can address these problems in the mind. We have made a kind of inventory, what is all going on, where we are coming from, what is the root of all the disturbances, what is the root of our unpeaceful mind. And so I think that what we can do next is we can start looking into, now what can we do about that? So if our basic problem, and I'm going to just give you a little tip and then we go to the meditation, but if our basic problem is that we react with attachment to pleasant feelings and aversion to unpleasant feelings, so that means the feelings is not the problem, but our attachment to certain feelings is the problem. So then we can change, if that is the main problem, we can change that by embracing the unpleasant and letting go of the pleasant, right? If we know how to be with unpleasant experiences, if we know how to let them go through us and come out in a more wise, compassionate manner, and if when there are pleasant experiences, if we have the capacity to let go. Somebody is sharing a screen. Okay, I'm back. So if we can let go of the pleasant feelings, if we can somehow, if we know where pleasant feelings are coming from and how to be with them so that they do not become a disturbance of the mind, you know, then we solve already 90% of our problems. So I will start tomorrow with talking about how we can do that. So we will talk about how, if the mind is still busy in the past, you know, how you can help the mind to come more to the present moment and let go of the past or what happened in the past. So then there's a question, Vipassana meditation helps to be equanimous towards all feelings, pleasant or unpleasant. So in Vipassana meditation, you do observe the feelings, right? You stay with the feelings without reacting to the feelings or without, you know, following your reaction to the feelings. And that is a, you know, very, very good, useful way of not nourishing, not stimulating your attachment and your aversion. But it is not a tool to realize the nature of all phenomena, which is going to help you to really let go, really eliminate your attachment and your aversion. It's a kind of not creating the conditions for attachment and aversion to arise, but the root cause is still there. So when causes and conditions change, for instance, when you do not have time to meditate, the problem is still there. How would a teacher or monastic react if someone uses ugly words or blame with no reason? Well, depends where you are at, right? I don't think that it is really, you know, you have an ideal how you would like to react, but it is not necessarily true that as a monastic you have that capacity, right? It is not that when you become a monk and a nun or a nun that you are free of these reactions. Being a monk or a nun means that you say, I'm gonna make the main thing in my life is to work with my mind, to work with these reactions and to try to lessen my attachment, lessen my aversion, lessen the disturbing emotions. Right? I'm just a trier. I just say I'm going to give that a lot of my energy, but it's not necessarily therefore that you have that capacity. How would you react? How to react that you will be free from the 8 worldly concerns. So if somebody blames me for something that I haven't done, you know, it depends a little bit on your mind. My mind was that if somebody blamed me, I thought I must have done it, but I cannot remember. Right? I didn't have a good reality check. And so if somebody blamed, then I would start to defend myself like, yeah, but I haven't done that. And now I think I have learned that if somebody blames me and I know that it is not true, then it is not true. You know, then what can I do? Nothing. So I can maybe say, thank you very much for that. I definitely, if somebody blames, you know, you look into that, is that true what they're saying? And if you cannot find anything that is true, then you say, okay, you know, it's not true. If it is true, then you say, thank you for pointing that out. Right? So I think when your attachment and your aversion lessens, but even more, for me, it is more the knowing, the understanding how my mind works, how the other person's mind works. The better I understand that, and I think that's the wisdom mind, the less I have a need for reaction, you know. The control is naturally coming. And I think I said it in the first class that the better we understand the mind, control comes naturally. And control means there is no reaction or little reaction. Okay. So I want to start with the meditation. Tomorrow we're going to start with the techniques that we can do in order to address our problems. And I think we're first going to start with how we can be with ourselves with unpleasant feelings in a kind and loving and compassionate way. Right? Because I think that is something that most of us do not know how to do that. And then we also talk about, you know, what to do with disturbing emotions in general, what to do with the disturbing emotions, specific disturbing emotions, how to counteract the self-grasping mind, and how to counteract the self-cherishing mind. So there are always all kinds of methods that we can apply. They can all reduce, you know, the problems that we have in the mind. All right. I'll keep looking at your questions and then try to integrate them as much as I can in the teachings. All right. So today I wanted to do a meditation on what I call the nature of the mind. We're going to look into attachment and aversion that arises and how we can have a different relationship when they arise in the mind. All right. So find a posture that is comfortable for you. Relax the mind. And bring your mind to the present moment. Bring your awareness to your body or to your breath. And during the meditation, have an open mind. If we can accept whatever arises, there is no aversion in the mind. And if we have no expectations of what might come, there is no desires attachment in the mind. When we have the mind in the present moment, we can see the impermanent nature of things. We can see feelings arising in the mind and dissolving back into the mind. We can observe our mind reacting to the feelings. And if we don't follow this reaction, we can see that a reaction naturally dissolves back into the mind. Being mindful gives us the opportunity to see the transit nature of everything. Whatever arises, when we see the impermanent nature of things, naturally there is no clinging to pleasant experiences and no aversion to unpleasant experiences. We realize that there is nothing to hold on to. Everything passes away by itself. Feeling arises in every moment of mind. When pleasure arises in the mind, we react with attachment. And this is our attempt to re-experience the pleasant feeling. We think that we need to have attachment in order to experience pleasure. Then when we hear we have to give up desire or attachment, we think we have to give up pleasure. But that's not true. When we give up attachment, we experience more or more full pleasure. The nature of attachment is that it cannot give you satisfaction. And when we follow attachment, there is always something missing. Or we want more, or something different. For instance, when we sit, we want to stand up. When we stand up, we want to walk. There is never contentment. This is suffering. So when pleasant feelings arise in the mind, instead of following it, try to step back and give it some space. And we do this by being mindful, by being in the present moment. Then you will not be carried away by the feeling. You stop clinging to it. When we practice contentment, we accept what is or what we have. When there is contentment, there is no desire. And when there is no desire, there is no dissatisfaction. This is where peace starts. When unpleasant feelings arise in the mind, we react with aversion. This is our attempt not to experience the unpleasant feeling. We deny, ignore, or suppress unpleasant feelings. Or we distract ourselves, indulge in pleasant activities, and think that we are trying to relax. By rejecting the unpleasant feelings, they actually become stronger. Relaxation that comes from being mindful of the unpleasant feelings is different than distraction. Instead of trying to escape, we are now looking at the unpleasant feeling. Mindfulness helps us to understand the nature of things. It helps us to see the impermanence of things. Then, when things happen, we know to to let go. We don't get disturbed when we lose something or when things change. The mind that is undisturbed by loss or harm is the mind of patience. When pain or suffering occurs, it becomes quickly huge, because as soon as pain is in the mind, we are so focused on ourselves. To counteract that, we can try to think of more suffering, comparing it to maybe the suffering of somebody else. My suffering is nothing compared to the suffering of others. Because whatever we experience is always relative, and the amount depends upon what we compare it with. The moment we realize what suffering is, peace begins. Peace lays within the knowledge. As soon as we understand, peace comes. As soon as we understand that what is going on inside us is fear, we are afraid, or we are worried. The moment we understand that, we accept it. And when we accept it, it doesn't become bigger. And then let the mind rest in its natural state. Your mind is open. You accept whatever arises and have no expectations of what might come. You are just present. And then we can conclude this session by dedicating all the merits, all the positive energy that we have gathered today by listening, reflecting, meditating. All that energy, we dedicate that to the happiness and the welfare of all sentient beings. Especially the beings in this world. Which is in a difficult situation in the moment. And then I would like to thank you for being here today. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you back tomorrow, same time. Bye-bye.